So welcome, I'm Ben Hennessy, the Director of Development at Asociacion Armonia.
And I'm Charles Boersma, Conservation Program Director for Armonia.
So we are in Barba Azul Nature Reserve now. I haven't been here for more than a year because of some of the situations going on in Bolivia and now with the COVID situation. And we're here to sort of review where we've left off since quite a bit of progress last year and now some progress this year. Right now it is October 2020. So maybe you want to go through some of the projects. We could start off with the solar system, maybe?
Yes, oh, that's great. We completed the solar system. We got 24 panels up and 16 batteries, and we literally now have 24/7 electricity throughout the reserve. So we have the dining facility on the grid, we have the biological station and the 4 cabins, and it's functioning all day long.
So before we had the solar system, we had a gasoline generator and we would turn it on 6 till 10. It made a horrible bunch of noise. You didn't have electricity for the rest of the day. You had to plan to charge your batteries for this little period. And now it's a great movement towards our sort of sustainable long term. We now have electricity full time and environmentally friendly electricity. Where are we now with tourism as far as?
Yeah, we're in a kind of a strange situation because of the COVID. Mm-hmm. We have been literally in quarantine for 6 months. Also for me, it's now the first trip after February I was able to return to Barba Azul. In terms of big development, we're ready. We completed the dining facility. We got all the furniture in it. We got it completely running. We have the 4 cabins ready. We got a new water tower with a big 10,000 liter tank. But now we kind of have to look at the minor details. Some extra chairs for the cabin, some furniture that's missing, and looking at the fine tuning of the infrastructure that's there.
But we have support for that. So hopefully when tourism starts again in 2021, we will be full on ready.
Exactly. Yeah. International Conservation Fund of Canada has supported us with the final bits to complete those little details to make it all look shiny.
Fantastic. All right, so tell us, what's our state of fire protection for Barba Azul Nature Reserve?
In 2020, we have completed all the fire breaks and maintained all the fire breaks that we already put in place in the years before. So we have fire breaks that are now 20 meters wide, completely barren of grass residue, as we have been maintaining them and preparing those fire breaks now for 4 years. The plan for this year was also to build backburn fire breaks. The COVID situation made it complicated to get to Barba Azul at the right time, which is around June. Mm-hmm. There's still water in the savanna, so the upper layer of the soil is still moist, and that is a perfect time to burn. So you're not affecting the top layer of the soil. Mm-hmm. So the idea is you have a clean fire break with a 20 meter or 15 meter backburn behind it. So you burn parallel to the fire break. Right. So when a fire comes in, it hits that short grass or that recently burned savanna, it goes down in intensity, it hits the clean fire break, and your fire is out.
The Barba Azul Nature Reserve is surrounded by ranches and they burn the grasses every year. So that's something we have to always be prepared for. They're not responsible for the fire. If it comes, we have to fight it away. That's part of our long-term solution is figuring out the best fire break scenario. And we've also been sort of improving habitat for blue-throated macaws. What have you been up to in the last year, I guess?
This is a very exciting project. We finally discovered the breeding grounds. We know their habitat they need for breeding. This is this tall Mauritia palm stands out in the open savanna, and we have been trying to mimic that type of breeding habitat here in Barba Azul. So literally a 12-meter long eucalyptus post with a nest box on top of it. In 2019, we had a pair interested in using the nest boxes, so that was extremely exciting. Sadly, a big storm came in and lightning destroyed the nest box the macaws were interested in using. They weren't harmed, they weren't in the nest box at the time, but we learned a lot that lightning actually is a component to take into account in order to, if we want to improve breeding habitat for the blue-throated macaw within Barba Azul, we need to take that factor into account. We are now going to put up another 10 nest boxes. We have 8 nest boxes up. 2 of them got destroyed by lightning. And with the support from Artis 2020, we can put up another 10 nest boxes. And we put them in strategic spots where the macaws are flying in the late afternoon towards their roosting site. They fly over those nest boxes and they can see, hey, this could be potential breeding habitat.
And how are macaw numbers as far as monitoring and counts are going?
We had a very interesting start. We saw extreme high numbers in March, April and May, much higher than the years before. Since 2017, September 2017, we have been systematically collecting blue-throated macaw numbers approximately every week. And we collect that data at their main foraging site. There's this spot where you can literally see the macaws congregating at an area within their foraging spot, and then they fly to their roosting site, and that is in open savanna habitat. So you can literally see small groups, but sometimes groups of over 50 taking off and flying to the roost where you can count them.
Right.
We also seen large numbers. The highest count this year has been 80 individuals at Isla Barba Azul, their main foraging site.
Certainly there hasn't been any indications that the population is declining, no?
Not at all. We've seen numbers going up. They do fluctuate, and we think that depends on food availability. We have been tracking the macaws. Finally, we succeeded in placing 3 GPS trackers on blue-throated macaws in September 2019, with the main idea to finally understand where are they migrating to breed, because that has been unknown for a very long time. So we placed 3 GPS trackers, and apart from understanding where do they fly to breed, we also understood a little bit more about their feeding pattern. So we suddenly saw them move from one typical forest island where they usually forage to another forest island. So we can even see different patterns within Barba Azul of foraging behavior.
We've been developing Barba Azul to be sustainable, to cover the costs of management, and we're hoping that tourism will cover part of that. And we're sort of looking at the different elements. One of them is Friends of Barba Azul, people who help support management every year. What we've also done is we have this part of the reserve, which is for tourism and is in pretty much as much of a pristine state as we can have it. And then Barba Azul East is where you're going to experiment with an example ranch, best practices ranching. Where are we with developing that idea?
So in 2019, we purchased our first herd, around 137 head of cattle. And by October this year, we have around 380 head of cattle. So little by little, we are growing through support from faithful donors.
Right.
The idea is that we would like to meet the ideal number of 1,000 head of cattle. That will really help Barba Azul Nature Reserve to become sustainable.
Right.
And over a period of 10 years, it will cover almost 50% of all operating expenses of the Barba Azul Nature Reserve.
Right. But you're saying as you want it to be an example ranch, and as far as I understand, it's the idea of a carrying capacity where you have cattle, but also the biodiversity in the area maintains. And that's sort of part of the process, to find what is the ideal level where you can ranching, but you can also maintain the majority of the diversity.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So the idea is to build a model ranch in Barba Azul. So apart from covering the operational expenses of the reserve, we also want to show an example of how to implement alternative practices to do an eco-friendly form of ranching, taking into account the forest islands, taking into account the savannas themselves, and preventing burning of the grasslands. So what we see in neighboring ranches, ranchers burn their grasslands once, sometimes twice a year. That has a strong and negative effect on the soil, on the savannas and the biodiversity. So the idea is to present them an alternative, show them a different form of ranching that is extremely productive, because with minor changes in your management, productivity will go up, and at the same time protecting habitat for threatened species.